Hello everyone, welcome to this video. Here we are going to continue our lab that we started where we are looking at high availability options for virtual machines within the Azure platform. And this lab is going to be particularly useful for you if you're preparing for the AZ303 Microsoft Azure Architect Technology certification. Again, for this lab, we're going to follow this particular lab from the GitHub. It's available from the Microsoft Learning page and AZ303 Microsoft Azure Architect Technologies. And I'll give you this link in my video so you can read up and learn more about this, what we are trying to do in this particular lab. So really, we are doing multiple different things in here. We have already completed the exercise 1 and exercise 2. In the exercise 1, we looked at the availability set. In exercise 2, we looked at the availability zones, okay? And in this particular exercise, we're gonna mix one more thing to our high availability options, okay? And that is virtual machine scale set, okay? That is not there. So if you have not done those two labs, just look at my playlist, take a look at the other two labs, and make sure to complete those you can before you come to here. This can be independently done, but it will be good if you have done the other two labs. So in this we really have three main tasks, okay. Deploy the high available virtual Azure virtual machine scale set into the availability zones behind an Azure application gateway, which we have not used in the previous labs, by using Azure Application Resource Manager template. So we're going to use the ARM template. So a lot of complexities of individually deploying different resources, you will not see it. Only thing that you're going to see how it's all configured. Okay, I'll have subsequent videos where we can deploy all the resources individually and then configure it so you have a little bit more hands-on how to do it. But for this particular lab, we're going to use a ARM template for our deployment. Then we're going to look at or analyze a high available Azure VM Scale Set deployed across availability zones behind the Azure Application Gateway. And just like any other labs at the end, we're going to remove all the resources so we are not built for things that are really not useful once we're done with the lab. So let's go to the lab. So first thing that we need to do is deploy a highly available Azure VM scale set into availability zones behind an Azure Application Gateway by using Azure Resource Manager template. So again, you got to log into your Azure portal, and then what we want to do, we want to go to the bash shell, and we want to upload this particular file to our local environment, and then we're going to start our lab. Actually, you need three files. This is the one file, subc.json. Then we also need 30301 rgc.json file and the rgc.parameters.json file. So before we do anything, let's do one thing. Come over here. What I do, I typically open up this in uh, another tab, go to all labs, and then come back over here and just get those files that we need. So these are all under folder 1. So I'll go down to folder 1, and the files that I need, they are Azure deploy 30301 sub c.json. So 30301 sub c.json file. So I just do it that way. There are multiple ways to do this. You can get the whole repository to your local machine if you like. But I'm good with this. So this one, I'm gonna save it. Come back couple tabs. Over here, the other three other things that I need are the RGC, rgc.json, rgc.parameters. So rgc.json. So look at the raw file and save this. And I would highly recommend that you read this a little bit. What it's doing, like this file, you have a description, a string used for base naming resources, like what a particular thing is using here for this particular number of VM instances to provision. Okay, so default values 2. So by default, if you're not changing, only 2 virtual machine will be deployed with this particular ARM template. Like what kind of Windows username, Windows password, what is the default size SKU for the virtual machine, what is the availability option, what are the disk storage, and all of that is configured here for you. So let me make sure that I have downloaded this one. Looks like I have. So let's and usually with this you have a parameters file that you also need to get. So rgc.parameters, so we got that one, and here we're only providing the username and the password. So go to raw and save, and so I have all the files that I need. So now go back to the lab over here. Now the next thing that I want to do, go to our Azure portal. I'm already logged in, so I'm going to click on this tiny little icon to open up my Cloud Shell. And if you're opening for the first time, it may ask you for some storage account. Just click on it. Create. It will create a storage account that you can use with your session. And if you are logged into the PowerShell, just click on this button to get back to the bash. Okay. The next thing that we want to do, first thing, we need to create a resource group, and for that, let's go over here and just paste this. So here we need to provide a location, and my preferred location is the East US. I'm going to copy that one. If you look at it, it's you're providing a parameter with this command AZ deployment sub create, and you're providing, okay, saying that this is going to be the resource group that we need to create, and RG location, again, just put East US. Okay. So what we want to do before we do that, we need to upload this particular file. So let's come back to your environment, click on this tiny icon, hit upload, and I have this file available somewhere here. So let me find where we did downloads, 303 1. So these are all C. So sub C is the file that I need, and now it says the upload is done. I'm gonna do the same thing twice, twice more times. So RGC is the one. So that file is done, and we also need the parameters. So I'm just preparing my environment with the files that I need. So yeah, so I got all three files. So I'm ready to run this command. So get the command now. Copy this, come over here, and you paste that command, and just hit enter. Well, it's already started. So what it's doing is really deploying, creating a resource group for us. So if you go to the resource group in your portal, what I would expect to see is a resource group named this AZ30301C Lab RG. Do I have that resource group already? I do not have it at the moment, but as soon as this is done, it says running, right? As soon as it says that yeah, everything is good, I should expect, like, now it's done, and it says the provisioning state is succeeded. So if you come over here and refresh this page, and there we go. So this is the resource group that's just got created after running the particular command. Okay, so now we are ready to run and deploy the ARM template to really create the environment that we need to review the high availability option. Okay, so this, if you read it, this ARM template is going to deploy an Azure Application Gateway with its backend pool consisting of a pair of Azure virtual machine hosting Windows Server 2019 data center core across different availability zones. Now, if you have done the other two labs, for the first lab we used the availability set, we used a load balancer. Okay, the next one we used the availability, first one we used the availability set, then next lab we used the availability zone, but in both labs we have used a load balancer to distribute our load. In this lab, we are using Azure Application Gateway. So understand which layer those load balancer and the gateway works. Gateway works even at the higher level, level 7. It knows more about what's going on. Okay, so let's copy this command and paste it just to review everything looks good. Oh, yeah. So here the command is a little different. It's as a deployment group create, and resource group, you are selecting the resource group that you have created in the previous command. Template file, you are again is the same as the preview. You are giving the template file. Then you're providing the parameters. Now, if the parameters are coming from another JSON file, you gotta add a at symbol before the file name. Okay, so important that you remember this. It could be a testable question in your exam. So just be aware of that one. So now let's copy this command, okay, and then come over here to your Azure environment, and we're just gonna run this command, and so it will take a little bit of time for the deployment to be done. And as soon as this is done, we'll come back and review the high availability option using this scenario where we have application gateway that is controlling how the traffic is moving to different virtual machines that are deployed using a virtual machine skill set. All right, give me a second. I'm going to pause, and as soon as this deployment is done, we'll come back and resume the lab. All right, everyone. I think the deployment is now done. The cloud shell got disconnected for a second, so I came back to this particular resource group, and I'm looking at what kind of resources are deployed already within the resource group. So we expected an application gateway, so I see that I have that. Storage account, and here's the virtual machine scale set. That is another thing that we wanted for our high availability option. If I go to this virtual machine scale set, I see two of the virtual machines are got deployed and both of them are running properly. If I go to instances, you see we have the both of the instances that are also running just fine. So to me, it looks like our virtual machine skill set looks good. So let's take a quick look at the application gateway as well. So here is our application gateway. Looks like we got a front-end IP address similar to our load balancer. You have a backend pool, and the backend pool it's got created. And what do you think is there in the backend pool? Is the name of the backend pool, and it's the virtual machine scale set. That is the target. So once you come to this application gateway, it knows where to send the traffic in the backend. Okay, so let's go back over here. HTTP setting, it's HTTP setting got got configured as well. Front end IP configuration, the public IP is configured. We have a listener on port 80, and we have some rules that got created as well. I think that's the minimum that you need. Okay, so you don't have a rewrite. Health probe is required for the load balancer. Here I do not have any health probe, and you can look at some other properties. So looks like most of the things are also looks pretty good. Okay, so let's come back to the lab and see what do we need to do at this time. Okay, so here, first of all, we are gonna go to the network watcher just like we did on the other two labs, and we're gonna look at the topology and see how this deployment look like. So just gonna search for network watcher. Once we are in the network watcher tab, okay, so just give it a second, and it's taking possibly a little bit of time. Okay, look at the topology is the next one that you need to create. Click on, and then this is the resource group where we have deployed, and you don't really need to choose any virtual network, so you're just going to review this topology. Okay, and that's a really cool feature, by the way, for network watcher. So if you have not used the network watcher, spend some time with it. So if you look at the very top, we have a virtual network. Then we have a web NSG, and then we have two network interface card. They are connected to the virtual machine scale set. Okay, and this is this these virtual machine scale sets are also part of this VM. One VM here and then another VM here. Okay, so your traffic is going to come to the application gateway, and based on your rules, it will be distributed to your 2 and 3. It's going to come to the application gateway, and then it's going to be distributed to 2 or 3. All right, let's come back to our lab. So here we have provided that, so we have already done that. It says review the resulting topology diagram, noting the connection between the public IP address, load balancer, and the network adapters of the Azure VM instances. Okay, so we looked at there are two nodes that they are showing that you should pay attention to. Deployment of an Azure Application Gateway requires a dedicated subnet. Okay, that is included in the diagram. Okay, and in this configuration it is not possible to use network watcher to view the effective security rules. So this is something that was possible with uh, something with a load balancer we cannot do with the network watcher. Okay, similarly we cannot rely on using the connection troubleshoot if we are using this particular configuration. Okay, we have to do our connectivity testing from the from the Azure Application Gateway. Okay, so next thing they're telling is to go to the resource group and go back to the Azure Virtual Machine Scale Set, which we have kind of done. It's just saying on that, look at the location tab and the fault domain. So let's look at that, and what you most likely to see, the virtual machine should be deployed in different fault domains, right, to give you high availability. So come back to the resource group that we have created. Come on, Azure is a little slow today. So come back to our resource group, go to the resource group, go to the virtual machine scale set, and look at our location setting. Let's see, come back over here. Note the location and the fault domain entries. So location and the fault domain entries. So fault domain, we have 5 fault domains that we are using, and the location is the East US. And if you look at it, since we have used 3 different zones, like zone availability zones, zone 1, 2, 3, they're all available. So let's come back over here. It says unlike Azure VMs, individual instance Azure VM scales are deployed into separate fault domains, including instances deployed into the same zone. In addition, they support 5 fault domains, just what we looked at. Okay, unlike Azure virtual machines, which can use up to 3 fault domains. So if you deploy Azure virtual machine and you configure your own fault domain, you can only choose up to 3 fault domains. You can use up to 20 update domains, but for the fault domains you can only use 3. But with this configuration, it's even better. It supports up to 5 fault domains. Okay, and fault domains are physical boundaries. So even in one data center, if you deploy 5 virtual machines and you have 5 fault domains, they will be actually deployed in 5 separate racks. So even if one of the racks completely destroyed, 4 other racks will be working completely because there's a complete physical boundary. All right, so in here, if you go to instance blade and identify the availability zone by reviewing the available location properties. So let's go over here. Alright, so let's look at our instances one more time. So let's go back to the instances, and they are all running. If you click on this particular instance, it says fault domain is 5 and the location is zone 3. That's where it's deployed. So that's the 2. So let's come back over here. If we look at the other VM and you look at that, it's now deployed in a different location. Okay, so that's what we needed to look at. And each instance resides in a different availability zone, and that's what we looked at. So one was deployed in 3 and another one is 2, something like that. They were not part of the same availability zone to give you high availability. So even you have a zonal failure, one virtual machine will be available. The next thing that you want to look at is go to the application gateway and look at the public IP address, get the public IP address, and we're going to run this particular curl command just like that we have done for the load balancer as well. So come over here, just you can search for the resource as well. Go to the resource, get the public IP address, copy this, Again, come over here, paste the IP address, and then the command that we need to run to test our high availability option is this. It's a crawl command, and we'll run it from the Azure CLI. So get your IP address and get this, and copy the whole thing from here. Go back, open up your window, go to your bash shell, and paste the command and hit enter and see what happens. And if you look at it, it's going on how this traffic is being distributed. So the first one went to the 003, then it went to the 002, then again it went to the 2 and 3. So your traffic is getting distributed into these particular virtual machines when you are sending request using curl to this particular application gateway. Alright, so let's see if there's anything else that we need to do, and verify the return messages indicate that the requests are being delivered in a round robin manner to the backbone. So that's what is happening. So if you change that to even 6, so 1 to 4, to say 1 to 8, okay, then hit enter, and you will see 2332, 2332. So it's going on in a round robin fashion to distribute the traffic. One last thing it's asking us to take a look at is the HTTPS setting or HTTP setting, and a select representing this particular setting. So let's go back on the application gateway HTTP setting. Then they're asking us to select this one and kind of review what it is. And here the backend protocol is HTTP backend port 80. Cookie based affinity is disabled. Connection draining is disabled. Here's the request timeout and the override backend path. Override new host name is disabled. Use custom probe and no. Let's see if we need. They're asking us to change anything in the app. Uh, this setting, review the existing without making any changes, and note that you can enable cookie based affinity. This feature requires that the client supports the use of cookies. So you cannot use Azure Application Gateway to implement NAT or RDP connectivity. So this is important because NAT or RDP was available using the load balancer. So we can go and RDP connect using RDP protocol to the virtual machine behind in the backend pool using a load balancer, but not with the application gateway. That is not supported. And this thing you can use the cookie based affinity. So if we go back over here and look at cookie based affinity, you can enable this one, okay, and just hit save, and it will enable the cookie based affinity. This is not part of the lab, but still I'm going to do that and run the curl command one more time and see if there is any difference in our response. And as soon as that's done, we could end the lab. So again, this lab really shows you how to configure virtual machine scale set, okay, with application gateway to give you a very high availability option. Now if I click on this one, right now I didn't see any changes in response, although it says that successfully saved the configuration. So one more time, yeah, I don't see too much of a difference, although it's the first two went to the two virtual machine and the last two to the other virtual machine. For the load balancer, we were able to save the session and it was only connecting from one IP to one virtual machine. Here it kind of looks like if I change that to even 12 requests, what it's doing, first two going to one of them, next two going to the other one, again two more to the first one, another is now getting a little bit not sure. Alright, sorry about the background noise, it's work from home. Anyway, so that's all I wanted to cover in this lab. Again, in the next lab, what I'll do, I'll deploy all these individual resources from scratch so you have a better idea how to configure each and everything that we have tested in this lab and kind of evaluated our high availability option. So if you're studying for this exam, good luck. If you like the video, give me a thumbs up. Subscribe, leave your valuable comments, and if you have anything to say, just leave it in your comment, please. Again, thanks for watching the video. Have a great day.